Hola amigos, welcome to Latina Living History. I'm Katie, and as you can see, I have a new filming background. My first and only video so far was filmed against a solid beige wall, and that's just not who I am. Well, Rich and I had always intended on turning this IKEA shelf into a display for our many reenacting hats, and this was a great opportunity. However, we discovered as we were putting the display together, we didn't have any hat stands. I had a severe shortage of candlesticks that I could use as substitutes, and so what's a girl to do? Well, I took myself to the internet and imagined my surprise and delight in finding out that Lynn McMasters had a free head form pattern on her website. I'll link it below, and in this video I'm going to show you how I put them together. Hopefully, you'll find it helpful. Alright, well I started by tearing out the seams and hems of this delightfully tacky and overwhelming valance that I used in my first apartment. My mother very kindly made them for me, but they're not really going to go with anything else in my house these days, so I might as well use them for my prototypes. All of the pieces are cut on the bias, so I spent quite a bit of time fiddling around and then realized I have a ton of fabric and I don't really need to worry about conserving it that much because, as I said, these curtains are not going to hang in my house again. So I just went ahead and cut them out. I'm actually cutting two patterns here. Lynn has both a head form and what she calls a chignon form, which would be helpful for doing things that don't need a whole head. Always make sure to mark the slashes, dots, etc. on your pattern. I did this by clipping, but you could also use chalk or a fancy punch that they make to do that. Anything that works for you. Then it's time to match up your marks and pin the snot out of it because you've got a lot of bias edges and things going around curves. Some of you might be able to do this with fewer pins, but I've always been a mega pinner. My friend Gwendolyn has made fun of me off and on since we were both in college because I use so many pins, in fact. Gwendolyn, you'll be pleased to know that I used up almost all of the pins on both of my magnetic pin cushions for this, and I don't regret a thing. Then it's time for sewing. I like to stretch everything a tiny bit as it goes under the presser foot just to make sure it lies nice and flat. Another thing that I should mention is that using a very small stitch length really helps when it comes time to stuff the heads. You're going to stuff them pretty firmly, and the smaller your stitches, the less likely they are to break, I find. Then make sure to clip all your seams. I cut notches out, but you could also slash them. However, when you fold over some edges, they will overlap if you only slash. So I just made sure and did triangles out of everything. Then it's time to notch your seam allowances. Lots of little clipping. Then you press your seams. I'm using a tailor's board, but you could also use a tailor's ham or my personal favorite, t-shirts wadded up inside whatever it is that you need to iron. Then you need to sew the center seam of the head form together. And then it's time for stuffing. I used some old pillows that we were never going to be using as pillows again and gutted them for stuffing. You could also use things like fabric scraps, wool roving, or really anything that you can compact down and it won't be lumpy. As you can see, my cat is very helpful. Really get that stuffing in there and make sure it's firm. Nope, still room for more stuffing, so you gotta keep going. You can use cardboard for the head bases, but I prefer wood. The template works for either one. and I had a lot of scrap lying around. So just a few minutes with a jigsaw and I had my head base. Likewise, you don't need power tools for this. You can get just a regular old stapler from the hardware store that doesn't use pneumatic, but this was nice and powerful. A couple of ka-chunks, and there you go. And there you have it, the finished product. I'm super thrilled to be able to finally display all my hats. After all, so much care and work goes into them, I think they deserve to be seen. Don't you? Thank you so much for watching. Find me on Facebook at Latina Living History and Instagram at La Vida Josefina. Thank you and goodbye.